Hello and welcome back to the channel and a slightly different video because this is one of my own courses. So we're going to take a break from our World Cup playthroughs. Now we're going with high winds. I can't remember what direction I picked. Everything else at defaults. So this one has been going for on and off, probably about 3 months or so. I did a practice, like test version of Atari ETTRI style way back when I first got a copy of the designer, but then restarted a new plot when the full game came out. Because I was originally planning on this being a series, but it quickly became really time consuming to actually get into, and just wouldn't have been much fun to watch. So I just decided to do the usual, and here we are. We can see what we have. So that's your overhead. Now, the routing process, I had a rough idea of how I wanted to do it. I knew I wanted to go out to the coast relatively early and then have it break away and go through the trees at odd points so that you would see that kind of then and again. And yeah, I thought that would work quite nicely. And then what we've got as well is you have this estuary. It's quite hard to see with the sand texture out here, but this one's taken from Te Harikoa. Now it has this, there it appears. So it has this really cool river at the end of the, one part of the plot, and that we worked down pretty close to. It's more there just for visual interest, but I quite liked how that was. Then you've got the coastal area as well, and then it kind of works its way back up and into the trees. So you hopefully just change the environments ever so slightly as they go. So you've got the treed sections and then the non. So, and then we have our clubhouse, which came together quite nicely, I think. I spent a lot of time on little aspects with the logs, but I think it fits pretty well and was quite an awkward part because I felt like I'd kind of rooted myself into a little bit of a corner getting this here. But I think it works nicely. It sits between 1 and 18. Yeah, the car park would be slightly further away. And you've got a little practice green and a practice area further away. So anyway, with all of that said and done, we're going to cross our road and work our way towards the first tee. And here we are, just overlooking the 9th green as well. So the routing ended up working out better than I thought it would do. Anyway, characteristics of the course. It is firm and fast. I wanted to play with the new settings that we have. So you don't need to take driver or even close to that a lot of the time. And as you will see with this, so we can take a 2-iron just off here, watch it bounce and roll. It will just keep going. So yeah, 281 off the 2-iron's not too bad. I just realised I was on maxed graphics settings, so if it was a little bit laggy, I apologise. That would have been the reason for it. Anyway, first green. This started out as, this one went through quite a few iterations and ended up just being simple. Like, I felt that the first hole was just, here's the course, this is what we're doing. And you'll see my first holes on my courses tend to be that. I quite like the first hole being a relatively simple, typical hole. Yeah, it's not a great shot. But yeah, the green was kind of just sitting there with this like spine through the middle, and I thought that dissected pretty nicely. I liked how it sat amongst those, and then you've got the big dune in the background. So when you go, let's say over there, not a bad part. Yeah, good for distance. Green speed's touch above fast, so you've got varying options for schedulers or yourselves. So if you want to tone down the firmness, you can do, and the same with the speed. Now the second hole got, again, probably 3 or 4, probably more like 4 or 5 actually redos. And this was the happiest I ever got with it. So it's a long par 3, but you can run the ball in pretty easily. You have one little bunker to make you think, and try and take it over that and run it up there. You can try and bounce it from short and roll it on using these slopes. There's a couple of ways you can go about this one. I think today we are just going to do this. Not the intention. I'm interested to see whether this goes towards that bunker. It does. actually goes out through the back and grabs in the heavy rough, which is not an ideal place to stop. Now, one thing I will say about the course, and I think this is just courses in general, you'll have noticed this in my playthrough streams, if you stop yourself from using the flop shot, I feel the game is infinitely more enjoyable. The flop shot and the pick shot are just get out of jail free cards on a lot of holes, and it just plays so much more realistic for me if you don't use those all the time. To say I was using that, I would be doing that from a downslope, heavy rough. It would be a horribly difficult shot to play, but the game doesn't really recognize that. Well, we're going to drop our shot, which kind of deserved after the tee shot, but it's okay because we've got a par 5 to come. Now, the third hole again went through some iterations. I always knew what I wanted to do pretty much with the tee shot. I knew I wanted a central hazard, and I wanted this to be like the one with the central hazard. But I ended up bringing the trees in further because I quite liked that you could work the ball around those in order to get to this part of the fairway. You have to feel like you're splitting that bunker and the tree. But then you've got tons of space out left if you want to use that, which will probably... I feel like I can take this on. Actually. Hit it pretty much straight at the bunker, but turns off. Works out quite nicely. And then it leaves this green side. So originally the green was running more along this dimension and it was doing that diagonal feeder slope, but I felt like I'd done that too much. And so I ended up going down the route of like, well, I wanted something slightly elevated, bunkers both sides I didn't have on the par 5s. So if in doubt, when you are revisiting holes, try and look at what you haven't yet done on the course or on your group of, say, par 3s, par 4s, par 5s, and that will hopefully help it mean that this one is slightly more unique. Not the greatest wind to play into this hole, unfortunately. It doesn't really show it off with my character. And as you can see, going over the back of this green is nasty. The green itself slopes really hard front to back to front, sorry, which means you don't really want to be above the pin, which I always think is a really nice green design because you can hit it anywhere and have a putt. It's just not always going to be an easy putt. Still, we manage our birdie and we're back to even par. Now, you're probably going to get sick of me saying this again, but this one's another one that went through a fair number of redrafts. The redrafts were pretty much all done at the green. I had the tee shot set from a while back, and I had a really cool green that I liked. But the more I did the other ones, this one felt like it was just too compartmentalized. It didn't quite work. The tee shot was always kind of a narrows concept of bunker left, bunker right. And then the green became what have you not done yet? And I hadn't done a fall away green, so a green that runs away from the player. And so I thought I'd do that. And it pairs up quite nicely because if you take the driver, then you're getting a wedge shot, which is going to stick on that green a little bit more. Take a 3-wood or less, you're further back and you're struggling to stop the ball on there as much. I wonder whether a stinger will work a bit better here. Look at that. What a beautiful swing. Depends on the bounce. Oh, it's good now. One other thing I did try to do with this course was just be much more friendly than I have done before on fairways. There are still going to be parts where you get awkward bounces. Like I'm never going to take that out completely. But I tried to err on the side of forgiveness a bit more on this one than, say, a Coombe Point. Oh, it's grabbed it and gone way left. The right club as well. Hopefully this one grabs. Doesn't roll away too much. Still got a decent putt. So yeah, having taken you to the coast on the first hole, I wanted to then have you work away from it so that you can have another big reveal pretty early on. And there were certain holes I had in my mind that I wanted to feature. So this is inspired by the 7th at Taraiti, which is a really cool drivable par 4 that is way better than this. But this one works quite nicely. One thing that's challenging with this one is the game is so firm that you can very easily bounce through to the back of the green. But I kind of liked that. So we can go for this. But I want to land it way short. That's going to be too far right, I think. Yeah. Distance was good. And yeah, in order to take the drive on that's not going to go through to the back, you have to risk leaving it short and in those bunkers, which then means we have this. I mean, doable. So yeah, out of bunkers, if you can, just use a splash shot. I think it's much more fun. Because again, it releases, it doesn't just stop straight away. So it makes you think about where you miss and all of those things. That's turned right viciously at the start. So, take a par. Not our best, but... So then we get to the big reveal, and 6. This was the last tee shot I was messing around with. I always loved the approach shot on this one and knew that I had the green where I wanted it to be. But the tee shot was always problematic. Now with wind, I'm just going to take a 3-wood. Oh, but that's gone down the left and could be in some trouble. Likely in the bunkers. Still, we have a view. And separating the fairways again was something I hadn't yet done and felt fitted quite nicely. So now I'm not going to be able to reach. 75% puts me in potentially in trouble. It's going to hack out somewhere to the fairway. So one of the questions I've been having a lot recently is like plot design and how you go about that. And there are some good tutorials on the channel. With this one, again, it was I had an idea of what I wanted the plot to be like. And then, but used that as a way to come up with the whole ideas. That's a nice shot. So once I had the plot broadly where I wanted it, then go around and find the holes, find the routing, and then just tweak and iterate really until you have everything exactly where you want it to be. Now 7 was always a favourite, had a really nice spot, was always just going to be a pretty golf hole, and ended up with a big green with lots of different kind of sections and folds and things like that. So this one was quite compartmentalized. There's almost lots of mini greens within the green, which is fine in as long as not every green is doing this. At least that's my feel. That is a nice tee shot. Now just be the club. Oh, and yes, it is. Very happy with the 2 there. So yeah, probably 7 and 8 were the 2 holes that were first completed on this course. 8 was a good example of just trying to get the dune side planting right, and it was one where there was this dune ridge initially when I made the plot that was through the middle of where this hole went, and that quickly became the, well, okay, that's how this hole is going to be made. So this part here was always there. It's been exaggerated a little bit since, and that then defined the hole. So you can hit driver this way if you want to. You can hit 3-wood back to there and let it roll down. You can take 3-wood or less to here. You can go this side and get more of a view of the green and avoid that bunker. You can try and take driver and clear everything. I liked that there were lots of different ways to do this one. Is 3-wood thinking going to be too much? Possibly. I'm just going to try and go down the middle, I think. And the wind is not quite bringing it back as much as I thought it would do. Disappointing. Still, it's only a wedge in. It's doable. But that might be tight. Try and hit it very high. Oh, it was predictable, wasn't it? Should have just taken my medicine, and now we're in trouble because I rushed the second shot. Another pin where you can see there's some challenge if you go beyond that. Okay. Got to calm ourselves down. Hopefully that bounces up. We left ourselves below the hole, which was important. Can hopefully just escape with one drop shot. But we've overhit the putt and pulled it, and there go the shots. Disappointing. So we make it to 9. Now 9's green went through a number of different redrafts and ideas. So the one on the bottom right, which is where we're playing today, was the one that was always there. But I found that basically, oh, that's a terrible tee shot. Thankfully, the fairway is extremely wide and generous. So there was this punch bowl green that I always really liked down here, which we may not even be able to reach now. But I found that hitting 4 shots into that felt a little bit repetitive. So I then put one behind here. But it was 2 punch bowl greens, and it was kind of like, well, it's still the same sort of thing. And I like the idea of Pine Valley's split greens, and I've always looked for a place to do those. Now, the one on the left, the other half of the 9th green, is a much shorter shot. So to hit to here, compared to our 252, you're looking at 170, 180. But the risk is just missing right, and then you're leaving a chip pitch up and down. Without the bunkering around the side, it kind of looks a bit odd, maybe, in that it's just got a run off of fairway. But I felt it played better, so we went with that. Now hopefully that might bounce on in a little bit. It does feed down from this side, but I don't think this has anywhere near the legs to get there. The tee shot caused all the issues. As you can see, it feeds in from that side, and generally, even though this pin looks like it's tucked behind the bunker, you can get at it a number of different ways. Wondering whether we try one of those now. Why not? So as you can see, you can play off the slopes and use that to feed a ball close. And that's a pretty solid par, all things considered. Just the one major blemish on that front nine. Going into the back, and you start with a drive ball par 4. Now, it's going to be broadly speaking in the same direction, slightly different to the previous hole. So still into the wind here. And that big bunker in front of the green kind of dictates where you want to go. So I think we want to be quite a decent way back, really. Now the little subtleties are that there are slightly higher, flatter portions on either side. So you can play this side and get a better angle in at this pin, or you can play this side and then you get different angles to different pins depending on where you play it. But obviously, in order to do that, you're taking on a little bit more risk. Or, in fact, just loads of risk on the other side. What a terrible tee shot. Okay, we need to figure some stuff out. 121 into wind. Just hoping that this gets over that bunker, really. It's not far off. You can also sneak it around this way. I wonder if that will work. What shots do we have? High spinner is always an interesting one. Never really know about how this works. Oh, that's gone way too far. A little bit less and it would have been good. But yeah, you can use the little mound or pimple behind the pin to run the ball close as well. We have at least ended up on the right side of that flag. It tried. Still, that feels like a shot gone. Definitely is a shot gone, but too rarely. So as we work away from the coast, you go back in towards the pines and trees, and these holes I felt were really important for having it feel like the course changes environments. You're not just seeing the same stuff over and over again. And changing environments isn't necessarily a must. It's more just a bit of variety, and I think that's where Te Harikoa does that really, really well. There's holes like the 4th on the south are just mind-blowing in terms of how they work with blending those two different environments. So this was the fun really weird green on the course that does some interesting stuff. So we can try and hit drivers or 3-wood at it. There is a way to work it round using the contours on the green. And it would be nice to show that off. We're probably just going to end up the other side of that mound. Oh, we might get lucky. Okay, that's not the worst miss in the world. So yeah, we have a bunker on one side, big mound on the other, and then just some really interesting internal contouring. So if you're ever laying it back, going at it from this way gives you a lot of helping slopes. Whereas where I've ended up, much more challenging now. See what we can do. Throw it up high. Not terrible. Yeah, we're just leaving ourselves too much to do with all of these shots. But again, that's why the avoiding the flop is so much more entertaining for me. Because if I played a flop, I just wouldn't feel like I was in any trouble with that. And you get up and down with a relatively easy birdie, but yeah. So this was another one where I kind of went against my usual routing habits, where I typically tack around the big land features and try to find the most sensible way to do it, rather than sometimes just tackling the big stuff head on. So 50 feet downhill, just a nice drop shot par 3. The estuary and the back, I thought this one worked nicely. And actually this one needed a couple of little tweaks to the green, but not much more than that. I always find this front section of the green the hardest one to hold, so I'm delighted with that tee shot. And as a green, I felt that this hole is challenging your distance control more than anything with the elevation. So having a high front plateau and then this little bit of a back raised one made those 2 pins on the insides of the green harder to get at for distance control, whereas the ones on the outside are obviously bringing more trouble in left and right. So I liked the way that this one ended up working because it challenges something slightly different each time, which is pretty hard to do with par 3s. Still just overreading everything a touch. And I like that you get a little peak of 13 going back down as well, which is one of my favourite holes on the course. Not because it's a great hole, I don't necessarily think it is. I just think it's a really beautiful spot. It's a pretty hole. It's just simple. There's only one real challenge off the tee, which is you're taking driver, you have to hug those trees on the inside. If not, play through a 3-wood. Those bunkers come in more. There is a bit of a spine here that will feed you back to the middle of the fairway. But yeah, it just wants you to feel a bit more uncomfortable the more you take on. And I think the best holes with trees in play or trees as hazards, you don't have to take them on. You have a way around it rather than being forced to. But it's hard to do that while still making them matter, and hopefully this has done that. Right, 151, 161, 153 seems perfect. Oh, I may not have got all of it. But it would fly more. Oh, such a great shot for a different pin. So this green on the simpler side, and again went through multiple redrafts. I think this was the 4th or 5th one I ended up on. When I say redrafts, I mean completely changing what it's doing. Originally it was really raised up and that didn't feel quite right. And it was sometimes trying to do too many things, so often it's been simplifying. In the end, it had that right section, which I quite liked, and then you'll notice there's a little bit of a spine coming through the middle of the green, whereby things break towards the front from about here, and then they start working towards the back again. And I don't do that so much, but I think it's an interesting, subtler feature that again just encourages you to get the ball close, but without necessarily. The problem with tiers, say, is because you don't have a putt other than just a straightforward 2 putts. if you miss it, it's like either you two-putt or you don't. There's not much else. Whereas you can introduce so much more interest with different types of contours like that. So 14, we're now right out on the coast and on the beach, so working up back the other way. This one was always just going to be kind of, I liked the idea of playing over the beach. I think a lot of great courses will do that. Oh, go just a little. Oh, it's good now. And again, you've got a little bit of a way around it. The ideal line's from the left, but the fairway will feed balls further left. You bail out a bit. So it tempts you to try and take on a little bit more, but you don't necessarily need to. And then this approach is just, you're going in with a shorter iron, so I don't mind ramping up the pressure. Just going, here's your green, can you hit it? I think I'm completely fine ending up short if needed. Of course, we'll pull it into the bunkers or worse. Just needed to hit the fairway. All it had to be. Okay. Not a bad shot. Sit hard. Yeah, again, just if you play that with the pick shot, it's much easier. And the bad shot, it's like erasing it as if it didn't matter. Whereas I want every shot that you hit to make a difference. And that's why we have to have hazards mattering. But I'm playing terribly. I was 5 or 6 under around this on most of my playtests. 15 is a really pleasing one for me because I had a hole that I knew looked pretty, it was functional, it worked quite nicely, but it caused some routing problems, and I just ripped it up and did it again in a different area, but with a different idea, and I am so much happier with this. So this one's the tabletop green of just, is your wedge shot, can you find the distance? I just find it awkward. And it's different to the other short par 3, so 7, if you remember, where, oh, go in, oh, I tried. So if you remember, 7 was this really compartmentalized green with lots of different areas. This one's not doing that. It's just broader slopes, one big false front, and just some runoffs elsewhere. Not that complicated, but I think works equally as nicely, if not better. Disappointing. And I think this is probably my favourite looking hole on the course. So then get to 16. Now, 16 is just a long brute of a par 5. And are we into the wind? We are. It's going to be a long hole. So for the tee shot, it's taking on this bunker because if you get past that, again, the little things you may not see, you've got this speed slot down here, so you're going to get loads of yardage, and you're close to the green and can potentially make it past that hazard into. I mean, into the wind, that's immaterial because we're never making it past. So I don't feel the need to go anywhere near that bunker. So you can just hit down center of the fairway here, and then our decision comes. So we can't quite clear that. We've got this bunker, which takes off that way. You can try and squeeze it through. I don't really feel that I want to. I think we're going to look over this way. Hopefully just let the wind and the land bring it back. Nice. It's into a load of space. We've still got pitching wedge. Well, probably take choke 9, I think. Maybe even a full 9. I'll just pop it into the area. Again, it's not, unfortunately, that's not a great shot. We had a lot of space in which to aim that. It's a funky green. The low middle area is probably the most accessible. And a fun pin. Oh. Oh, I thought I'd hold a putt finally. Greenskeeper is letting me down. Now, 17 went through relatively few redrafts. I always liked the tee shot. Didn't need much. The only thing, and the green you'll see we're playing to here is the one that we were always going to play to on the first one. The only thing I did, because 9 had that double green or the split green, I felt like you want to do that somewhere else, and there was a really nice potential punch bowl here. So basically, if you get the low green on 9, you get the high green on 17, and vice versa. And I think both of them offer some really interesting shot choices, and actually just paired really well together for my liking. As for the tee shot, you can try and take a driver down the right-hand side over all of that, and try and lay up to this flatter area up here, which works well in this case. Or you can play back a little bit more. This approach shot is tough though. It looks like south is a tricky wind to play. Oh, I haven't quite got it. Oh, and it's not even gone into the bunker. Disappointing. I was going to say, I felt like it was trying to give me a lot of club there. Disappointing. Oh, my green reading has been so poor. 2 over. Not even going to go on. Not even going to go level par my first round. Double bogey killed me. And then you get to 18, which brings us back down to the clubhouse. And the look off the tee when I found this one was just like, yeah, way back at the beginning, this never moved, this tee shot. And there are certain, when you're rooting, there are certain anchor points, I find, for lack of a better term, of just, this is something I'm not going to give up. So I was always really happy with this one. I think it's one of my favourite looks on the course. I love that you can see the clubhouse just poking out, little trees in the distance. And as a tee shot, it's just wide as, and you can hit straight down the middle, and the ball should just bounce and roll for a long way. Which means it's kind of a hole you don't really need the wind with you for, because it's a really generous fairway. It's going to be fine anyway. And then we get a punch bowl green, which is modelled after the punch bowl at Streamsong Black, in that it has these couple of little ripples in the middle. And I just felt it made it really interesting as a putting surface. So, see if we can hit one decent shot to finish up. Pulled it left. Again, amazing for a different pin. Just not for this one. So you'll often end up on the green on this hole, just not necessarily with a good putt. And it would be pretty common to have a 2-putt par on here, I dare say. So there you go. That is Te Harikoa, which is not a way it's not a word I know how to say. And I believe, if memory serves, it roughly translates as bliss or peace in Maori, which, looking up what Te Ara stood for and Taraiti, I was like, I knew I wanted something that encapsulated that feeling of just like calm that I get on those sorts of golf courses in beautiful locations. So I wanted something that gave you that. Yeah, as you can see, terrible round. I'm hoping that yeah, that'll be the worst I play on that. But I found when playtesting this, it's really easy to get into a run of pars, and I quite liked that, particularly if you stop yourself from using flop shots and pick shots. And I think it plays I really enjoy playing it, so I hope you guys will too. Anyway, that's us. There'll be another course at some point in the near future, but yeah, this one has taken a long time, and so I'm really happy with where it's at. I think it is, as you could have heard, there's been a lot of editing going on to all designs, how those are working, and I think it's ended up a lot better than where it started, which is the part of this that I enjoy the most. See you again soon.